This passage, well, for some background, you would need to know that my great-grandmother left India 4 months pregnant, and she was traveling by herself. She didn't have a husband with her, and this was in fact the story of most of the women who left India as indentured laborers. 2/3 of them, over the entire course of indentureship, were traveling without a husband. So this first passage is set in Garden Reach, which is the neighborhood in Calcutta where the immigrant depots were located and where the indentured waited for ships to take them to a new world. I tried to imagine my great-grandmother in this setting, preparing to board the Clyde in 1903. How did she ever get to this point of departure, surrounded by so many fragmented families and outcasts, bearing secrets and unstated loss? Did she look back over her shoulder as she boarded the ship? Was there regret in her glance? I don't know, because she didn't say. But I do know the story of one woman who had no regrets when she left Garden Reach in 1916. Maharani could not remember her parents' names by the time she told her story in a voice frail with age. She was a child when they died. They weren't there for her wedding to a much older man, whose name she couldn't remember either. Maharani was 5 when she got married, and she was still just a child, only 12 when widowed. Soon after, her brother-in-law took her to a magistrate's office, where she ceded the rights to her inheritance from her husband. For 8 years after his death, she cooked and cleaned for her in-laws, bearing their beatings for minor mishaps, much like the one that ultimately triggered her journey to Trinidad. She left literally over spilled milk. Maharani had just boiled milk for her in-laws when a cat crept up to lick the pot. She pelted the cat fell over, and the pot capsized. Anticipating another thrashing and suddenly unwilling to accept one, she slipped out while her in-laws were eating. In 1987, Maharani explained why she fled. I said I'm go beat me because I getting too much licks. I said I'm go beat me. Well, I run. I didn't tell nobody I leaving. On the road later that night, she met a man with 1 foot at a well. When he heard her predicament, he offered to help. Did she want a job on an island where she could make 25 cents a day? All she would have to do, he claimed, is sift sugar. Did she want to go? Maharani said yes, she did want to go. She would go. Minna had nothing, she said, recalling how at 20 she calculated the costs and benefits of leaving India. I come way, Minna have nothing. As her boat was anchored in the Hooghly River, another ship pulled in, bringing home Indians who had finished their indentures. They clamored to portholes to warn the immigrants staring back out of their own portholes. From a distance, the repatriates shook their hands, gesturing for the immigrants not to go. But it was too late for anyone to heed that message. This was the point when the umbilical cord connecting the immigrants to India was presumably cut. Several survivors of indenture, in the rare accounts that describe the severing, mention weeping. They conjure a scene of breast beating and wailing as the ship embarked. But Maharani did not cry, nor did she remember sounds of sorrow. She remembered drumbeats. Looking back across the span of 7 decades, she described how her jahajis, her shipmates, played drums provided by the crew and how they sang and danced during the journey. Them bringing happy, them in bringing no trouble, them bringing happy, nobody to study nothing, that's why them bringing happy. There was nobody to make her study a single thing, nobody to cause her grief or worry, no brother-in-law to cheat her, no mother-in-law to beat her, nobody, she thought, to make her tremble in fear any longer. But should Maharani have been so convinced that no one would cause her grief anymore? The warning by the repatriates as her ship got ready to leave the Hooghly was ominous. Might they have been warning about the voyage itself to begin with? Indenture vessels were, after all, crossing in the wake of slavers with their well-documented horrors, from tragic mortality rates to the rape of women.